The lesson we're about to begin is about dried beans. So dried beans are a variety of a legume. So there's quite a few things that actually fit into the legume category. That would be dried beans, a variety like pintos, black beans. These are some kind of crazy one that I found locally. The kidney bean, did I already say that? There's also split pea. So if you're gonna make soup, it's that dried pea or lentils. Now there's two steps in making these guys go from dry to being what's basically edible. So they're not edible right now. The first thing you need to do is you need to soak them. So what I like to do is I like to bring a kettle to a boil, and I pour boiling water over top of the dried beans, and you want to fill it fairly full because they're going to absorb that water while they're soaking. I'll immediately put a lid on top, and that's going to trap in that heat and that steam, and I'm going to let them sit like this overnight. And we'll do that in the classroom. Now the next day when we come into class, we still have to actually cook the beans. So after soaking all night, we will drain them because we want to get rid of the water that they soaked in. The water that they soaked in is quite nasty, really, and it's also not great to cook in. So the second day, after soaking them overnight in that water that we had brought to a boil, the second day all we'll do is we will turn our oven onto maximum. We will bring them to a boil, and immediately after they've come to that boil, we will turn it right down to a simmer, and I mean barely simmering, like where you will see one or two bubbles coming to the top, but very, very gentle. So why do I like to use the dried bean versus the canned bean? Most people think go with the can, it's way easier, and of course it really is. But there are three really basic reasons that I think the dried bean is better. Number one, it's cheaper. It's much cheaper to buy a lot of these beans, cook them, and then freeze them, and then you can use them the same way you'd use canned. The second reason is they're lower in salt. Often when you buy canned beans, there's so much salt in them that it kind of takes away from a lot of the nutritional value that's in this bean. And finally, the last reason, which is very important to me, obviously, is that I can get local beans. Now, why do we want to eat canned beans? What is so valuable about them? Canned beans are actually a member of the meat and alternative group when we're talking about the Canadian Food Guide, and they can replace meat because they're super, super high in protein. Now, what's beneficial about this is that in turn, they're high in protein, but they're low in fat, and they're also really high in fiber. And depending on the type of bean you have, all kinds of other nutritional values. So the dried bean, two steps. Day one, we'll pour boiling water over top of them, and we'll let them soak overnight. Day two, we will completely drain them and rinse them, put them back into the pot with lots of water, bring to a boil, and immediately turn that heat down to a bare simmer. How long will we end up simmering them the second day? 1 to 3 hours. It's one of those things you just have to check because each bean is totally different.